Guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena. Today we're back over on the YouTube account, and in today's video we're going to be looking at the August tier list. Now, breaking down the amount of heroes that we have within AFK Arena, there's one that we are not looking at that has not been tier listed yet, and that is Lan. Right now, without having a bunch of iterations, without seeing what the Treasure Scramble brings, the Curse from the Nightmare Corridor, it's very hard to place Lan. But overall, being a Draconic hero, being a support hero, and looking at the skills and abilities that this hero does possess, I would probably say S, maybe double S classification where she's going to fall within there. But of course, let's hop over. We'll break down this tier list. All right, guys, so here it is, the August tier list. As you can see, there have been a couple little changes in here looking at the placement. So let's start at the beginning, just like we always do, still holding their ground and thinking of these heroes. They have really been the most pivotal heroes that we've seen within AFK Arena. Looking at Liberta, still nobody has yet to this day to really dethrone the utility we see with this hero. Literally every single game mode the hero is being used, including the Lost Spire that we just run. I ran him in there as well. Worked super well. Then we have the Awakened version of Shamira and a couple Awakened heroes in here. The Awakened version of Shamira, again, very unique in what she does and how she does it. Actually based on HP, not so much the attack. So the more HP that you do stack on her, the better she is going to perform. And of course, again, utility-wise, used everywhere. Another hero that I did use in the Lost Spire. But even when you look at the PvP aspect in a multitude of teams, doing incredibly well, which is the same with the Awakened version of Athalia. We see a hero that is super effective in pretty much any single game mode that you see. And it's kind of interesting because when you look at Liberta, Lucilla picking up, again, kind of a little bit of a slot, moving a little bit before we're actually seeing with Demia and Lavatoon. But of course, this does make a big difference because of having the towers, a couple different things. But overall, when you start looking at really the top two tiers, so when you break down the SSS tier and the SS tier, so really these first two top tiers, they are the heroes you're going to use everywhere. They are the heroes that have a ton of utility, going to see a lot of play. And of course, this is going to change month to month as we do see new heroes being released. And I also think, again, that Lan is probably going to fall in the S or this double S tier, possibly a little bit higher, just based on the support aspect that the hero does possess. Then, of course, we have Demia up here and we have Lavatoon. Now, with Demia, when it comes to a hero that has a crazy amount of utility, not only does damage, but also really drives the survivability of a team. When you have the correct collection on her, she works incredibly well. And of course, with her skills and abilities, the effectiveness of the hero is super strong. Then, of course, we have Lavatoon. Again, when you come to a support hero, when you come to a buffer, Lavatoon does exactly what he is supposed to. Again, big reason why they're being used everywhere. Then, of course, the Awakened version of Leica, utilized in some teams and very unique how it shields the front line or the back line, depending on where you place Leica, but also the instant damage that she puts out makes her absolutely pivotal when it comes to Nightmare Corridor. Burst damage in there works super well. And of course, the effectiveness in a lot of different game modes works super well, again, with this Awakened hero. Then we get into the SS heroes. Now, interesting enough, Gavis is the first one we have here. Now, Gavis, very unique to his build. He is a mage, but he plays a very solid support role in the ability that he has to really mitigate damage, keep the targets alive, goes hand in hand with the Awakened version of Belinda. Again, keeping that hero alive, working incredibly well, regardless of what formation you really do put this hero in, the utility is there for the hero itself. Looking at Amelia, another one super effective within game modes. The ability to not only instant crowd control, which of course can kind of play off the Lucius comp, which can also play off the Ice Crown, providing some more crowd control, but also the energy regeneration that this hero provides with the crowd control is kind of broken, which is the reason why she is still the top tier. Then we look at Jerome, again, when it comes to buffing, very similar to Demia and Lavatoon. Buffing is superb with this hero. And of course, going in with the Awakened version of Belinda, because Belinda is a light bearer hero, Jerome actually gets some additional buffs in there, which does work out incredibly well. Now, the regular four factions, looking at Ivan and of course Jerome, some of the very first ones that we see, but again, top tier. When you think of AFK Arena, Jerome, and also looking at Palmer, looking at Ivan, they are absolutely priority number one when it comes to building them out, because their effectiveness is through the roof, and I absolutely love it. Again, Palmer, very unique with the crit damage and the amplification that he provides. Not many support heroes that do that. Now, of course, looking at Aethys, when you think of the purity of a tank and the ability to really take damage Aethys is the one that can probably take more damage. I mean, short of like even burst damage does super well. The effectiveness for him, not only to provide crowd control, which is super effective when you're going through higher level deficiencies, but also the ability to literally shut down teams is kind of crazy. Survivability is there, meaning not going to die very easy. Then we have Rimuru. Of course, Rimuru, starting to see very similar to what we see with Gavis. A lot of utility with the hero, but it is based more in the support role as a mage. Then we're seeing with the big part, than we normally see with a mage like Belinda that does damage, really focus on damage. It is more of that support aspect. Now, Rem still making a very big appearance. Burst damage, again, when it comes to Rem, super effective. And also thinking with these tiers is the ability to get a hero like Rem super effective, especially because the exchange for Shuna and Rimuru has ended, which means if you did not pick them up as free to play, if you didn't pick them up as a new player, Rem is going to be your absolute priority to get out of the garrison, as well as Amelia. Both of them will do incredibly well. Naruko still doing super well. Again, when you think of defense, when you think of tanks, when you think of buffs, the attack, the healing, this really tiny tank does it all for the Mauler faction. Super effective in utility with Nadia is very high. Now, Shuna is another one. When it comes to support heroes, Shuna does incredibly well, just as we wanted to see her. And again, multitude of teams. When you start thinking of Curse Realm, Nightmare Corridor, Treasure Scramble, 3 of the major game modes that run, 5+ teams within there, it's incredibly effective. You have to have a lot of these heroes built for a multitude of game modes. Now, the Awakened version of Lucius still, again, is the higher that you build him, the better that the hero is going to perform. When you think of the SP effect that he possesses, the more defense gives him more attack, and vice versa. It's kind of crazy to see how they built him and the effectiveness we've seen him. And again, he is best in slot in a lot of different places. The Awakened version of Sophia, support hero Awaken, very similar to what we see in Solus. They are kind of niche in what they do, and also the effectiveness of the hero comes with having them built out. When it comes to these Awakened heroes, 30960 is really the minimum to unlock all of the skills and abilities that they possess. Have to have them built out. Then, of course, we have Eugene, best in slot in a couple different comps, and the Awakened version of Baden. That is right, first generation Awakened version of Baden, similar to Solus. Utility, just because of the uniqueness of the hero itself. The damage is really crazy that this hero still puts out. And I can't imagine if we had the hero built a little bit higher. Now, Trishia's in here, SS still pretty high with Trishia. Again, when it comes to some formations still being used, I can see her slowly kind of dropping out. And then, of course, we have our first Draconis hero, which is Gwen. Now, when it comes to building out the hero, either you have the Draconic version of Gwen or you don't. It is really no in between because the hero does so much burst damage and, of course, requires a very, very high build out to have the effectiveness. But when it comes to the Draconic heroes, that is the one that we are seeing the highest utility as of right now. Getting into this S tier, looking at Vathiel again, damage-wise does incredibly well. Buffing does very well. Looking right here at Adrian Elise, it is the plus 40 signature item. Without the plus 40, the utility probably falls in, I would say, the B, maybe even C tier. But when you have that plus 40 signature item within Adrian Elise, you actually apply the buffs that he has to the entire team, which puts the effectiveness of this hero through the roof. Hildwyn, another mage, again, that plays kind of a support hero, does incredibly well. We've even seen this hero being run with some other buffers. I'm looking at Helium, which I believe is going to be much higher. We've already seen it move up 1 tier. And this tier list, I feel like we're going to see possibly SS in the future time as we continue to see this hero being used in quite a few more places. Now, of course, Scarlet being used, still burst damage, still Nightmare Corridor. Effectiveness of the hero is still there. Now, the Awakened version of Antandra, this is one, again, we're starting to see in a lot of different formations. Utility-wise, survivability is not there with the hero. But with that being said, if you have a group that is going to provide crowd control, if you can get her to ult, if you can get the abilities up for the hero itself, utility goes much higher if you can keep her from being really burst down within the first probably 10-15 seconds. If you can get her to ult, usually you can't kill her at that point, which is funny because that's very similar to what we see with the original version of Antandra with the utility. Then, of course, we have Nyla in here, support hero that does a crazy amount of damage. in really any formation you can kind of fit her in, does work well. Tamara's in here for the buffing. We have the crowd control. Kelthin in here, another one utility-wise, running with the Awakened version of Baden. And of course, dominating the Hypo Tower. A lot of players had some questions about the hero. Again, very similar to what we see with Gwen. It requires a big build out to really be effective. Skills and abilities based on stats. Higher the stats, the better they're going to do. Villanelle in here as the S, again with the Awakened version of Chimera. Works super, super well in a lot of different formations. We have our little Rosaline in here. When you look at following anyone in here, really any of your damage dealers, we've seen most recently her following the Awakened version of Athalia, which of course can put the damage through the roof for the hero. Ulna level deficiency, still very, very broken. Rain in there, super good as a substitute when it comes to our support heroes. Same with Rowan, same with Mortis, same with Silas. If you don't have all of these really big support heroes built out, they are the ones that you're putting in all the formations. So again, might not be the best, SSS top tier support heroes, but when it comes to the longevity of these heroes, players that have played for a while, these support heroes do work incredibly well. Lady Simona with Chimera still, again, works super well. Then, of course, Iran in here. Iran does work very well. Burst damage still being used within Nightmare Corridor. Same with Matria. Matria is an interesting one. We have started seeing Matria actually used in a couple different formations, which again, it kind of dropped off for a little bit, but it seems like with some of the later released heroes that we're seeing her come back. As we go through the A tier, I'll look through the rest of them, but we're just going to kind of go through a couple new heroes in here. Now, Raul is in here. Again, effectiveness with a brand new hero. We have to see where they're being used. There's some places where his utility literally drops to almost nothing because of the skills and abilities he possesses. And then we do also have some places where he is really shining, being used in formations. And the same is true with Melion. I feel like since we've seen the addition of Lan, Melion, Lan combination with Nyla, combination with Gwen has been working incredibly well because, of course, Melion buffs Draconic heroes. As we continue to build out and get more Draconic heroes, we are starting to see a lot more utility. And also looking at this list, a lot bigger picture, these are the heroes that are going to fill in your slots, that are going to fill in your teams to really make out the well-rounded 25 heroes in a team. We're seeing Braun used in a couple niche formations, even looking at Eevee, looking at Joan. Again, support heroes that do their job really in a niche formation. Even looking Kanice and Rook, we've seen every now and then. Edwin as a very solid support. We've seen Vika in one formation of the Nightmare Corridor. Same with Crisio, one formation of the Nightmare Corridor. But again, these are kind of the niche heroes. So the rest of the heroes on the tier list, I'm just going to kind of run through. I'm really looking at some of the more primary ones that we still see. Mishka, again, utility-wise, when Aethys came out, kind of replaced Mishka short of the tower. And these are really super, super effective tower heroes that will do incredibly well. The original version of Baden actually still being used in one formation. Valkyrie continues to kind of drop down. And you'll also notice that Cassius and Polina are both kind of in this B tier. Short of being used in the Dragonforge, they're not really anywhere else. Unfortunately, with the Draconic heroes, we're seeing some that are kind of a flop, some that are seeing a little bit of utility out of there, but not a ton. And then we start getting into the lower tiers, even looking at the C tier heroes. These are heroes that are literally just stuck to the towers if they're being used at all. Even thinking of newer heroes to AFK Arena, there is no point that I would build really any of these heroes in their entirety, especially just building them out for the towers themselves. And unfortunately, heroes like Ainz continue to kind of get power crept on. Same with Lucy up here. We see the power creep continue. And then, of course, we have the D tier, which is going to be our absolute bottom tier. These are heroes that are not even worth building for tower formations. And I feel like also a lot of these C tier heroes, even looking at the lower, probably level or two, are ones that are going to be dropping out in the near future. So guys, I hope it really gives you some guidance. And with the tier list itself, even when you think of building signature items, when you think of the engraving, when you think of building out furniture, the top two tiers are your priority. When you think even looking at Liberta, looking at, the Awakened version of Chimera, looking at Athalia, looking at Leica, even looking at the support heroes within here, they are the heroes that are going to require a much bigger build out. They are the required heroes that are going to take a lot of the resource generation and also what you do have. So, all right, guys, so that is going to do it for our August tier list. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.